There's no air conditioner. You can join us at the table.
Okay.
So we're in the meditation, and we started saying that no blade of grass grows from below unless it's struck by a mazel. What are the mazalos? They're the actual stellar constellations, and then they themselves are ruled over by the 70 ministering angels, okay, who are spiritual entities, but they're sort of like the bridge between spirituality and physicality, because they deliver their energy directly to the physical world. And we said that now he goes on. So then we're on 3 lines down from the top there. Vasarim in the middle, the sarim makablim mishamre aufanim. The sarim themselves, where do they get it from? They get the energy from what's called the shamre ofanim. Shamre ofanim is a type of angel. Ofanim b'chayos hakodesh, right? We say in davening.
I have 2 faces or something.
And the or I think it means like a wheel. I don't know. Ofen b'toch ofen.
Right.
And the shamre ofanim, it means the waste product of the ofanim, which means basically every creature has a digestive process where he takes in the energy, the food, whatever it is. The best parts goes to him to like basically make his life better, and the worst parts that are too coarse for his body to maintain, he exits the system. So for some people, that exiting of the system is like their life force. In other words, like manure feeds the plants, right? So that's the whole Ayin Sarim. These 70 ministers who were basically in control of the whole solar system, they themselves receive from the Ofanim, but they receive from the waste product of the Ofanim. That their whole life force is the waste of the Ofanim, this higher level of angel.
Wow.
The 70 angels receive from the waste product of the Ofanim. So we're also waste product. I mean, everything's like a waste. It's like the leftovers of what was above it. So I was in a Fabring with someone named Rabbi Ofen, actually. It's pretty... I mentioned his name.
Serious.
Yeah. And but he's a great mashpi, actually, and he's well known for his mastery of Hasidus. And he was like joking at a Fabrenga. So if someone has a big house, what are they priding themselves on? It's just another big piece of, you know what? Like Gashmias is just waste product, basically, you know.
So were you saying that we're receiving from the waste product of the 7 ministering angels?
Basically, it doesn't say that, but in general, the way that it works is that everything receives only the external. At every level, what the being brings in, what he receives in a 3-stage process. There's like the beginning, middle, and end, you know. So basically, there's energy that like enlivens like sort of their intellect, energy that enlivens their emotions, and there's like what they put out, or what we call panemius and chitzonius in a simple level, if you want to divide it into 2. What they take in and what they give out. So what something gives out, it's basically like this exhaust or this waste product. And yeah, I mean, at every stage this is happening.
How does it work with the angels that are not like physical? Or what are they like eating and like taking out?
I mean, it's not physical eating, but I mean, even it says by Hashem that he eats, right? Lachmi li'ishai, we're going to read it today in the Torah. Hashem has like this is my bread for my fires, you know. The sacrifices are called, the sacrifices. Right? So eating just means that you're receiving something, and what Hashem, so to speak, receives, as it were, food from us. That itself requires a little explanation, but the idea is that what does food do for Hashem? Because we stumbled into this, I'll just explain this. That in order for the soul to stay in the body and not leave, there needs to be food. Basically, food is what keeps the soul in the body. So for Hashem to like sort of stay connected to his body, the physical counterpart of himself, the physical world, then he needs to eat, because it keeps the connection going between this Hashem and this world. So that's why when we did offer sacrifices, the revelation of Hashem was much stronger in this world, because his soul was connected to his body. But in general, the idea of eating is just like you see in every single organism. You know, there's a certain need to receive energy from something higher than you, and then there's certain processing of that energy and a certain distribution of what's not needed. So I mean, it's not necessarily a physical thing. It doesn't have anything to do with physicality. It has to do with just the process.
How about the earth? The soil's fertility is It's coming from the excrement of all the worms and the animals and the people.
No, so according to Baruch, he wasn't so much concerned with this process taking place physically. He gets it physically, but how does it happen by angels? So say, well, it's not so different, it's just not, instead of being in a physical place, it's in a spiritual place. Anyway, so it's not finished. He says, Vehem, those Shamrei Ofanim, that waste product itself, or the Ofanim themselves, I should say, Hem, Mekablim Ma'malachim. They receive from the higher angels. The Rambam goes through in the beginning of the Mishnah Torah, he explains there's 10 levels of angels, starting from like directly above this world and up, and he names them by name, whatever, each one, he says, V'gavoa ma'al gavoa, and higher upon higher upon higher. In other words, the meditation that you're sitting in is like how many stages of life force there are in order to get to this world, and how this world is just a receptor for infinite stages of godly flow. Ad shekulam mekablim b'chinas malchuso yizbar, to the point that what's the top? They're all receiving, as it were, from Hashem's level of malchus. Right? In Atzilus, the lowest sphere of Atzilus is Malchus, and Malchus is what creates there to be any kind of existence other than Hashem. In other words, Malchus, it says, Ein melech below am. There's no king without a nation. Right? So the second Hashem calls himself a melech, instantaneously there's the other, there's the nation, and therefore all others receive from particularly that one sphere of Hashem when he calls himself a king. Malchus kol amim. As we say in Ashrei, your kingdom, your sphere of Malchus, is the Malchus of all the worlds. Because once you have called yourself Melech, all of a sudden, it's the source of all the worlds. Shemahave es kol ha'olamos ma'ayin liyesh mamish. It enlivens all of existence, all the worlds, literally from nothing to something. B'hurak b'chinas ziv ha'shachina bevad. But get this, right? He's sort of just one level of separation again and again and again. So we finally got to the top of all these angels. They all receive from Malchus. But what is Malchus itself? It's only the ray of the Shekhinah alone. In other words, as far as Hashem is concerned and what's going on in Atzilus, that thing which creates all of existence itself is the tiny little ray of the godliness from which it comes from.
Malchus of Atzilus,
Malchus of Atzilus itself is only a ray.
Right.
Because the idea of Hashem is in full existence and has all of his powers and so forth before he decides to reign. And the idea of reigning is not even like a significant power. It's just like a decision of like how to act as in conjunction with an other. It's not, in other words, it doesn't require, let's say, in other words, in a simple sense, it's like it refers to speech, right? The sphere of Malchus is called Olam HaDibur, the world of speech. It's the faculty of speech. So what is speech when it comes to a person? It's literally nothing. I mean, you have all of your intellect and your emotions and your whole being. And what is speech? It's like the tiniest ray that you're going to contract and condense everything that you are into some like little exhaust. It's like this waste product, in a certain sense, that comes out of you, which is totally insignificant to you. You could speak forever and it would not take away any parts of you. It's like that's what it means by a ray. That it's not a significant part of Hashem. That having it is somehow having a piece of Hashem. It's just a like sort of a nothingness that comes out of him. You follow what I'm saying? The fact that you could speak it's not like you're taking his arm, and making the world with that, which is like a piece of him.
No, but the speech is probably the biggest cause of problems in the world. That's right here, like Lashon Hara. So speech is a very powerful thing. It's
powerful, but in terms of its its significance compared to the rest of you. In other words, really what's causing all the problems isn't your speech, it's you. It's just that your speech is what is a way for you to like sort of express yourself, right? Exactly, right? This is the gun control conversation. Is it really like guns that cause murder or people that cause murder, So you're blaming the guns. That's what the Republicans are trying to say, right? So the idea is that it's the same thing. You're saying speech is the most dangerous thing. It's like the weapon of killing everybody. If you just control speech, if you get rid of speech, it will be okay. No, it's not. Speech is just an expression of the you. Okay, it happens to be a sharp weapon. But again, it's not doing anything really. It's just expressing you. And
how you use it.
Right, so the point is what I'm trying to say over here is that speech, compared to your other powers, like your intellect or your emotions, which are literally you, speech is not you. It's called an external garment, right? Which you just sort of let off. Which is the point is that all of the worlds, which are saying level upon level upon level upon level, the source of them is Malchus of Atzilus, and that itself is basically a nothing compared to Hashem. It's just a little ray. It's trying to put you into a little perspective of reality here.
There's a T-shirt that says, "Guns don't kill people, I kill people." I'll get you one for you to wear around the house and stuff.
Okay, thank you. She'enu elu b'chinas ziv ha'ara ba'alma. What is this ziv ha'shechina bilvad? It's only a little ray and a shine ba'alma alone. Bilvad. L'gavi mohuso v'atzmuso yizbarach. Regarding in comparison to Hashem's very essence, kaviyachal as it were. Shehu b'chinas ein sof mamish. Because the essence of Hashem is the real thing. It's the Ein Sof. Hayahu v'yihyeh bli shinoi mamish. The level above Malchus is a state which does not have relationship to creating the world. So like if you're when you get into a level of Malchus, so suddenly you're a king over some entity which is finite in both in space and time. So the whole level of Malchus is basically limited in of itself, and you can see that based on the job that it's performing. But right above Malchus, you get to the actual Hashem, which doesn't have any connection with space and time. It's Hayahu Beviyihyeh. It's past, present, and future all at once. Bli Shinoi Mamash. There's no change. There's no entities. There's no distinction. So it's completely Ein Sof.
Can you see that Malchus is the beginning of the material world, in one sense?
Well, we already said that the 70 ministering angels are the beginning of the material world. So what happened to the Shamrei Ofanim and the angels above them and the Gavoa Ma'al Gavoa all the way up until Malchus of Atzilus? You're literally infinite distance away from the physical world by being in Malchus of Atzilus. That's the point we're trying to say. Like, at first we're trying to make Malchus big. And then we're trying to make Malchus small. What's the idea here? He's trying to show you how tiny you are in compared to Malchus of Atzilus. That there's infinite levels of Hiseder Ishtalshlus from you to Malchus of Atzilus, meaning that Malchus of Atzilus is like the big fat daddy which is feeding everybody, and then guess what? It's nothing. That thing which is feeding everything and everybody is a tiny little hair, not even a hair is already connected with the body. It's breath, it's like mamash nothing. That's what he's trying to do, is put you into this realization. So very much it is not the beginning of the physical reality. It's infinitely away from the physical reality, but nonetheless, it's nothing. So this is, okay. V'kamaimer, as the saying goes, Atu kodem shenivra, v'atu la'achar shenivra. That is, this level of Havaya, which was beyond Malchus, right? Malchus is the name Adni, right? Which represents a master. The word Adoni, right, basically means master, which means it's already like something subservient to that. There's a relationship. So above that, Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is just pure being, and being in a state where it's specifically past, present, and future as one, beyond distinction. So then at that level we say that you are there before you created the world, and you are there after you created the world. Meaning to say that there's a certain level of Or Ein Sof, where the presence of the world is completely insignificant. It's like it never happened. Right? Meaning that as far as this is kind of a big thing to put your head around. Yeah.
Question: in general, in Torah Or, how does Torah Or connect with the Tanya? Is it just like a
Same author.
Same author.
Yeah.
It's the same author. Yeah. Okay, so what does it mean? You were there before the world was created, and you were there after the world was created. It means that at this level of Havaya, the existence of the world is a non-event, right? In other words, we feel very confident in saying that at some point in time, the world came into existence, right? And before that, there was no world, and after that, there is a world. But if you think about that, that makes a problem, because it means that Hashem goes through change, right? Before Hashem didn't have a world, now Hashem does have a world. So that means there's a change in God. And God is eternal and unchanging, right? So how is it possible?
He was not a king and then suddenly he is.
Whatever, yeah, whatever. No, but that's still a change. It's a change in Hashem.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Right? How could it be? How could there be really a beginning and even an end? Like, what is all this thing that's... So what we explain is that it's not really happening on a certain level of existence in the place where... Because what does it mean, array? Array means that inside of the sun, the ray has no existence. The ray only has existence when the sun stops at a certain point, and the ray comes out. So when you see a ray coming through your window, you say, "Oh, like I can sort of put my hands around this ray. I can shape it, define it. There is something here called a ray." But if you go back into the source of this ray, you'll go back into a place where there's no more ray. When the ray is inside of the sun, it ceases to be called a ray because its existence disappears and you're just inside the sun. So the idea is that when is it that all this is happening, there's a Seder Ishtalshelus and the world start to exist, starting at Malchus of Atzilus. Why? Because what does Malchus of Atzilus do? What does it represent? It represents the place of Hashem's great tzimtzum. Malchus is basically synonymous with the Kalim, right? Before Malchus, you have 9 other spheros, and there are vessels there, but the primary conversation is that it's light, right? And the vessels are sort of secondary to the light. When Malchus of Atzilus is the opposite. There's light there, but the primary emphasis is on the vessel. And if you want to call it like speech, for example, as we've been calling it, all the other things that take place, they take place inside the body. Speech is the first thing that takes place outside the body, right? You have thought, even though it's just a mere garment, it's a garment which is taking place inside of you. Speech is the first thing that exits you. So this whole idea that there's an exit, that there's an end to the being, and an outside and an inside, that is the function of Malchus of Atzilus. It doesn't actually end the being. That's the point we're trying to make, that the truth of the matter is that the being is everywhere. Because the mashal of the ray coming out of the sun, or the speech coming out of the man, is only a mashal, and it is not actually dome lanimshal, as we say. It's not compared to the actual analog. Because in the analog, the sun never ends. And the man never has an outside. Everything is contained inside. It's just that he hides himself. He makes it, as in the eyes of the ray, he makes it as though the ray is no longer contained inside of the sun. And suddenly there's this experience of self and existence and independence. In which case you can say, I'm the king of all the worlds. But that's because Hashem is hiding His infinite light from being able to be seen by the standpoint of the ray.
A major transition.
So in reality, there is no transition. That's the point. In other words, if the ray comes out of the sun, it's a huge transition. If the speech comes out of the man, it's a huge transition. Right. That's only if the speech comes out of the man. But the speech never actually comes out of the man in reality. The speech only comes out of the man because Hashem performs this wondrous thing where He hides and makes it as though the speech came out of the man or the ray came out of the sun. Right? In other words, are you following what I'm saying? Yeah. In other words, Hashem never removed Himself as far as He is concerned. Right? He just removed Himself as far as we are concerned. And so therefore we experience suddenly that there's a beginning. What is this beginning that we sort of mistakenly perceive? It's a mistake, but it's Hashem put this mistake firmly in our minds, is that He disappeared at a certain level and created a level of a ray which is small enough to be contained and called the beginning of something. But that's only in our perception. In His reality, He never removed Himself at all from that space. It's just like a hiding act. In which case, what's with the world, as far as Hashem is concerned? It's exactly the same before He created the world and exactly the same after He created the world, which is that it's nothing. It's a ray which has no existence inside of its source of the sun.
Wow.
And this, you understand what I'm saying? And this is Malchus of Atzilus. So the source of all sources that we're saying, when you go all these levels up and you get to like the kingpin, literally, then what do you have? You have the source of all things. But guess what that is? It's nothing. It's literally nothing as far as Hashem is concerned. Because right above that is the real reality of Ein Sof, where there is nothing other than Him, including no ray and no spheros and no kalim and no malchus.
Confuses me that I thought that malchus makes specifically like what is under it.
Yeah.
But also makes what is above it?
No.
But you said what malchus creates. I mean, I saw it also in Tanya. Like malchus makes malchus in Atzilus, gives the life and makes it and gives its existence to everything within Atzilus.
Meaning to say that if you don't have malchus, you have everything nullified out of existence in Atzilus. So there's no perception of any beings. Malchus gives the perception of an otherness. So all of a sudden you have beings.
Right.
But it's not that it like. So in a certain sense, it gives life force to all the things in the world of Atzilus, and it creates the world of Atzilus. But meaning to say that what it's really doing is it's hiding the infinity of the world of Atzilus and allowing like this the unique strain of separateness, which is connected with Atzilus, which is a very, very little level of separateness, to be perceived. It's like throwing like a curtain around something. So all of a sudden, it doesn't have this blinding light, and it allows other things to exist.
And
So it doesn't mean that it's, yeah.
But how is that then like go together with the Keter Malchus thing?
In other words, because that power alone, that Hashem can hide himself, is itself one of the greatest powers of Hashem.
Right.
So even though on a certain sense it's hiding Hashem and making otherness be perceived, like this is going back to Yom Tov's point about speech. I was trying to make the point that speech is mamish nothing compared to the person, which it is. On the other hand, it is quite interesting that it's the only thing that we can do which actually expresses ourselves outside of ourselves. So while the level of that expression compared to like our intellect is literally just breath and hot air,
right.
But the power to be able to make me be outside of me is a miracle in its own right. So that's what it means. Keser is Malchus. The root of that ability for Hashem to hide Himself and make it as though something else exists is equally or even higher of a power than it is for Hashem to be everywhere. So there's a certain wonder and awesomeness and highness in the sphere of Malchus while we're busy saying that it's so low. But in the present conversation, what we're really saying is that we're looking at you. Where do you come from? You're busy with with the problems in your life, and you're now stepped into the shul for a second, and you're like, whoa, what a crazy day. And let me meditate for a second. What's really going on here? And you start to realize, Pashit, how insignificant you are. You think your problems are real. You think the demons in your life are scary. Come to the light for a second and realize what is going on. You're like a big giant piece of poop. You know what I'm saying? Like the excrement of the excrement of the excrement of the excrement of the excrement, infinite. So, and here you think that your life is so significant, and you get to the top of this thing, Malchus of Atzilus, and it doesn't even exist at all. It's a nothing. So this is basically what it means to sort of meditate yourself out of your problems. And not only that, but what made you meditate so deeply and like have to come to this realization is because you had all these problems. And so this is the point, that the flood waters actually take you higher, because you needed to sort of get out of this situation so desperately because you were flooded, and you just needed to sort of recognize like the real source of what your problems are, that everything comes from Hashem in a big way, and that everything is basically extremely insignificant to the point of not existing at all. You wouldn't have thought that. You wouldn't have been pushed into that need to like sort of release yourself from the chains of this world if things were just cool and everything was going good. You wouldn't have needed to, as it were, get on the boat.
Right. Like the waters raised the...
Again, that you know that is from this mimer.
Right.
Just want to make sure, because the beauty of the Alter Rebbe is that everybody has heard all these things a lot of times because this mimer has become world famous. But that's why we want to read it in the source mimer. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, another analogy maybe for it is that basically there is Hashem, which we can't fully comprehend at all. But everything beyond that is just like different layers of illusions. Like an illusion that's even more elusive. Like, like the first understanding of Him is like one illusion and a layer and layer. So by the time they get to us, it's like there's like layers of illusions. So all that this conversation is trying for us to see that how to swim through that.
Yeah. Again, I mean, when you say illusion, I also have to be careful about that because
like a mirage.
No, it's not a mirage. That's the thing. It's like there is like sort of a machlokes within like the Polish or Hasidim and Chabad over this topic. They want to say that it is actually an illusion. Like there is no world.
Wow, really?
The whole thing is just as you said. It's just like one level of illusion after the next. But the idea is that in Hasidus we're saying that it is an existence, but it's not. But so how does it go along with what we're saying here? That it's a ray which is invisible inside of its source. So it's connected with what we just said about Keser Malchus. That actually this ability to make this illusion itself comes from an unbelievably deep place in Hashem. That it is godliness. It is not an absence of God. An illusion means there's nothing really there, right? But we are in agreement that there's nothing really here. Like the emptiness of your speech compared to your being, it's mamish nothing. It's literally has nullified in its source. But the very ability for that nothing to be perceived as a something, and not only a something, but like mamash that you can't put your hand through, that itself comes from a certain level of divinity, which is actually even higher than the infinite light. So it is godliness as well. It's not godliness in like in a positive sense. It's godliness' ability to hide. So what we'll call an illusion, it's really a very, very high level of divinity, which enables Hashem to make this illusion. So there is something there. It's not that the world is the thing, though. It's the power of divinity to hide himself, like the vessels. They are the thing, as it were.
It's like top quality virtual reality.
Well, I would say that's almost like an illusion, though, no? Maybe not.
Well,
The big debate was illusion. Is illusion or temporary? It's not illusion. It's temporary. It's not false.
Well, I would say, on the contrary, it's actually eternal, and it's not an illusion. It's like that's not even. I wouldn't even frame the debate in such a way, because it's godliness. In other words, the physical world is never going to go anywhere. It's eternal. We're going to live forever in physical bodies specifically. So it's not even temporary.
That's why it's called olam.
That
right?
comes from somewhere else.
Something.
But the idea of being real, in other words, that the physicality of the thing is real. That's what I'm saying. It's not the physicality of the thing is real. There is no physicality. It's godliness. Just like the Ein Sof is godliness, this is godliness. It's not a thing. That's the if you can say anything is an illusion, that's the illusion. We are fooled into thinking that the godliness of this table is somehow less godly or more worldly than the godliness of the Ein Sof. That's an illusion.
less or more.
Well,
Either or.
no, it actually is more slightly. It's like a higher level of godliness actually than the Ein Sof, than the infinite light that will obliterate everything. Because that's what we're saying. Malchus, which is the lowest sphera, it sources from the highest sphera. This like unknowable, unrevealable level of God that can make this thing look like it's real. So in other words, you see what I'm saying? Like what is higher falls lower in a word,
Well,
right?
the human understanding of the hologram is like, oh look, there's a fake table here. You put your hand through it, you don't feel anything. It's a hologram. But a hologram that Hashem makes, it's at like a whole new level where it is actually a hologram and it is not letting me put my hand through it. And it does have properties and it does have feelings. And so it's like you saying an illusion is like diminishing it, because our understanding of like a hologram is like a cheap little like cup where virtual reality cup. But like Hashem's understanding of an illusion or hologram is that you can actually get burned from coffee that's not there.
But the point is that if you think it's coffee and you think it's burned, if you think that it is what it looks like, that truly is an illusion.
Heavy.
But it doesn't mean that the actual thing is non-existent. On the contrary, it is a higher level of godliness, and godliness is not real, right? It's mamish. It's elokus. It's just an elokus which looks like something else. So it is an illusion if you're taking it for something other than what it is. But if you recognize that it's godliness, on the contrary, it's a higher level of godliness.
Is this all because of Tzimtzum?
Yeah, this is tzimtzum.
Mamash
In other words,
tzimtzum.
it's not only because of tzimtzum. You're right that all this is a result of tzimtzum, but the very act of the original tzimtzum, which creates nothing in place of light, that's not just a warm up for what comes after it. That is exactly what we're talking about. That nothing right there is a thing, a big time thing. It's like the essence of Hashem. The fact that he can all of a sudden like not be and therefore create the absence of himself, that's also himself. And on the contrary, it's a higher level of himself. And that is what sort of, how do we get our hands on that? Unfortunately, that's what the illusion is. When you're dealing with this illusion, what you're dealing is with the absence of Hashem, and that is not a non-thing. It's a very high thing. So, yeah.
I have a question on the ray in the sun example. So if the ray's in the sun,
Right.
there's no difference between the sun and the ray?
Yeah.
It's all just one
Yeah,
thing?
there's no more rays. You don't call it rays. It's just the sun. The ray disappears completely.
Like, I understand that example, like, okay, Hashem, like there is only Hashem, but then how does that work with the idea, like, but I'm like not Hashem,
You are a ray of Hashem, right? Maybe you're like the end of the ray of Hashem, right? Malchus of Atzilus is literally a ray of Hashem.
Yeah.
And then the ray gets farther and farther and farther and farther until you are the end of the ray of Hashem, right? What makes you the 70 ministers and then the constellations, and then you are a manifestation of the end of that ray, right? So you are a piece of the ray of Hashem.
I guess that also like if we're in the room and the lights are off, for example, and there's like this room is full of light. If you wouldn't really know the sun exists, for example, like it's a basic knowledge, you wouldn't know why there's light in this room. You know there's light, but this is not the sun. This is just simply light. It's just a ray that you don't even know, like you know.
So the first time it
If you-
Wait, hold on. Let's stay focused here. I just want to answer Baruch's question. So what you're saying? Say it again, please.
Just in the light, the ray in the sun example.
Right.
There's like no difference between the ray and the sun. It's all just the sun.
The ray basically becomes a non-existent entity in the
It
sun.
doesn't exist at all.
Right.
There's only the sun. There's only Hashem.
Right.
So
But so how does the ray even start to exist?
with the sun.
But the Tzimtzum, right? Which means the sun actually never went anywhere. Let's remember what the Tzimtzum is. The Tzimtzum is not something that removes Hashem. Does everyone have that clear? The Tzimtzum is not something that removes the light. It only removes the light as far as the ray is concerned. In reality, the ray is constantly and always inside of that sun because the sun never went anywhere. It's just that the Tzimtzum is like a sort of, just like the sun itself, it doesn't have to be there. Hashem decided, you know what? Let's have infinite light right now. That itself is a godly power. He doesn't have to do that. Right? So he's like extends himself infinitely whereby nothing else can exist except for him. There's no potentiality for a ray. Right? That itself is a godly power. Agreed? So the fact that he can make all that look like it's not there is equally a godly power. Even though it is there, the fact that he makes it look like it's not there and has like an end to itself is equally a godly power. And that godly power gives rise to what will be eventually called the ray, when it comes out again. So then you feel like, what is the ray? It's an aspect of divine reality which makes you feel like you can exist independently from Hashem. But in reality, you never do exist independently from Hashem, because in reality, the other aspect of the light never went anywhere. You're still completely nullified out of existence.
Wouldn't you say that in a way it's not a reward? It's almost like a...
I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. So
I understand like that I don't exist independently of Hashem, but it's hard for me to understand that I am exactly the same thing as Hashem.
well, I mean, look, is the ray of light something other than Hashem? It's a ray of light.
Right.
The Devar Hashem. Even the fact that we're saying the word Hashem
Yeah.
all the time for God. What does Hashem mean? A name.
Right.
Is Hashem's name Him? Yes. Hu u'shmo echad. Right? We say He and His name are one because basically it's a perfect expression of Him. It is Him. He is invested into His name. So the fact is, He gets there's nothing other than Him. Right? So even all the aspects of the ray are Him. Not only are they Him, they're a tiny ray of Him. In other words, they're not. Let's say they're not the totality of Him, but they're nothing other than Him. But it just gets to a point where they are so, bamboozled into thinking that they are something else that it's like impossible for them to realize the true reality. That they're not something else. They're only Him. So why should that bother you? That you're Him. It bothers you because He encased you in encasement after encasement and concealment after concealment, that He literally took the ability to have consciousness that all you are is Him out of your being. That itself is a big, neat trick. That He can be enlivening something, and He is the thing, and the thing thinks that it's independent. That's the whole point. That's the tzimtzum. So you are Him. I hate to tell you.
Yes, but the whole purpose is for us to not think that we're independent.
I just thought there was like this other school of thought that thought everything was Hashem, so they call it pantheism or something like that.
Okay.
And I thought Judaism was like a different.
Einod milvado. There's nothing other than Him.
Yeah.
I don't know, all the
He's talking
isms.
about Buddhism, where
all the isms.
The tree is God. Everything.
Listen, whatever it is, all the isms, you're going to find them all inside of Yiddishkeit somewhere. In other words, at the same time, I'm not saying that the independent existence of you is also not a reality. On the contrary, what I'm really saying is that it's even a higher reality, because for you to think that you're independent, that itself is a godly wonder. It itself is elokus. It's a higher level of elokus. So we're not negating the sense and the feeling of individuality. We're just saying that part that you feel that you're actually independent is a mirage. That part is an illusion. You are, because it's not you. It's God, it's another power of Hashem Himself that makes you feel that way. So I don't know, pantheism, this ism, I don't know. All I can tell you what it says in Hasidus, but don't. This is. I hope it doesn't create confusion for you.
So the transition from the spiritual to the physical happens between the 70 ministering angels and the constellations.
Yeah.
That's the first time we get physicality.
Yes. Okay. A few other people had questions. I sort of shut you down there. Are those questions still coming out, or we're good? All right. I just wanted to follow through with Baruch there. Anyway, Achris bonus kolana. Okay, the meditation is over. Mazel tov.
What?
So after
Oh, is it?
after all meditating on this principle, I think it's pretty good. I mean, if you think about that for a while, you'll be okay.
Oh, wait, so
It comes to a realization of your absolute insignificance to the point that you are a ray inside the sun, and all there is the sun. You get to a point of mamash nothingness. Where else do you want to go with that?
Right, okay.
It's a feel-good kind of lecture.
Achris bonus kol hanal. After meditating ba'omek hadas, in other words, literally thinking about each level in the depths of your das, which means concentration. Tis'orer nafsho b'chines ava v'tashuka nifla. Yeah, it is a feel good, as it turns out, because if you'll do this, it will arouse you in a state of love and a wondrous longing, kadish pi like a burning flame, letzeis mitoch hachoshech va'ahelam agashmi, to get out of this darkness and physical concealment, hazeh. V'rak l'dafka bo yizbarach. When you come to the realization that all it is elokus, and you're like sitting in a complete mirage, thinking that you have this important life with all these things going on. Again, not that it's not real, but it's not other than elokus, right? Again, that's an important stress. It's not that it's not existing; it's that it's not existing as something independent from godliness. It is elokus, period. And the fact that you have taken it to be like some kind of a, your own personal existence, independent, that you can't be thinking about God because you got to pay your taxes, you realize suddenly that that's ridiculous. There's nothing happening except for elokus, and this creates like an unbelievable urge to get out of the dark world that you're living in that's a complete fantasy of your own making. And to l'dafka bo yizbarach.
Are we talking about the darkness we mentioned earlier?
Yeah, like just the darkness being the daigas haparnasa, the worries of making a living. Right? The feeling that you are alone and you've got like stresses that you can't handle, like your private life basically. Your thoughts that your existence is independent from Hashem.
But the level that we feel that or suffer from that is our own fault, our own doing.
Well, it's a lack of thinking about things as they truly are.
Right.
So you can say that meditating on such matters will like inspire one to.
It alleviates you from your burdens, because they're not your burdens. This is just like the whole thing is elukus. You're living inside. You are godliness. You're living inside a world of godliness. Every drop of rain from the flood is godliness. There's nothing there to like oppose godliness, because there's nothing other than godliness. And therefore, you're going to want to get out of this foreign conception, the way that Hashem made it look for you. I mean, He made the problems. He contracted and contracted and contracted to the point that you are positive that you're an independent entity bearing free will and can do whatever you want, and you have your own separate life from Him.
So as soon as you feel like you're not alone, then you're okay.
Yeah,
Kind of.
yeah. You're not only are you not alone, there's no you, there's only God.
Right, exactly.
So this makes whatever part of you was feeling like you want to get out of that sort of. It's like running away from depression, like this feeling of like heaviness that you are in, like have all these problems. What problems do you have? What you is there? And what is like the result of this, that you'll say to yourself, who do I have in heaven? With you I do not desire. Okay, so this is like a very famous quote that the author brings down almost every mimer. And what it means simply is, it's talking about a realization of the essence. And when you're thinking about the essence, then mi li b'shamayim, then who do I have in the heavens? In other words, if there's an essence upon which everybody is nullified, then what heavenly beings are there? In other words, you've already got past like the levels of Gan Eden and this whole ray. Even if you go to the top of the ray, who is there in Shemayim? It's nothing. The imcha, and something which is, so to speak, with you, i.e., it is not you alone. Lo chafatzti, I don't want it. In other words, I'm no longer interested in any secondary levels of this ladder, because all of it is mamash insignificant, because it's nullified inside of the Or Ein Sof. So who is there in heavens with you? What I do not desire. You understand that? How to read that pasuk?
לא חפצתי, no, they didn't get it, לא חפצתי.
Okay, imcha means with you, something secondary to you, something other than you, which means even if it's the highest beings in the highest worlds, like I'm meditating on Atzilus, no, lo chafazti, I don't want that. Because at the end of the day, no matter how high it is, it's just part of a ray which is insignificant and batul b'metzias.
So who do we have in the heavens other than Hashem?
Yeah.
Other than the highest level.
Right, like the with you part, I don't want it. Whatever's called with you and it's not you, lo chafatzti.
With you, I don't want.
Who do I have?
With you, I don't want it.
Yeah, like who is there in the heavens means like what existence is there to any heavenly beings after going through this thought?
Right.
That's mili b'shamayim. And the second part is imcha, something which is not you but was rather, so to speak, with you, some entity which is you have, like that you hang around with, like beings. Lo chafatzti. I don't want any of them. I want you, because I've come to the realization that everything besides you is just a ray which is nullified and out of existence. I want to connect to the pure, and that's the thing. At the end of the day, Baruch, if you realize what your ray is actually inside of the essence of Hashem, then you're not just a ray anymore. You're the sun as well.
Could it be like
because you're inside? Like in other words, the ray, in other words, doesn't want to be a ray anymore. Let's say you're the end of this ray, and you realize the whole ray is just like this, like mirage that Hashem is hiding. You come to that realization. You don't want to be a ray. What's the idea of a ray? It's like you're outside of the source of your life. You've like somehow been like disconnected from it, and you're independent. What are you? A ray is not part of the sun. You come to this realization that this is ridiculous. I just want to be inside my source, where I belong, where there is no more me. It's just you. And therefore, if there's no more me and there's just you, what kind of floodwaters are there in my life? It's like the ultimate release and joy. Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Is it then mili b'shamayim ve'imcha like but?
No, and with you, an entity which is with you alone and not you, I don't desire. You don't get that?
Ve'imcha lo chafatzti.
In other words, something which is merely with you, I do not desire.
With.
In other words, not you, but with you. So other than you.
Like money?
Like a consort.
Yeah, some kind of an angel, some kind of a being, some part of this ray.
Ve'imcha, and like what is with you.
Yes.
Lo chafatzti.
Yes. Shelo yachpotz klal, that you, and this also becomes a whole nother level of being a Jew. You no longer desire Gan Eden HaTachton, Gan Eden HaElyon. This changes your whole perspective of why you're doing mitzvahs. Because a Yid will go around doing mitzvahs because he thinks he's going to get some big reward in the world to come. When you realize that all that reward in the world to come is still part of this ridiculous ray of feeling separate and totally an illusion. You're not interested anymore. You're not serving Hashem for any reward. You want to get out of the whole thing where it's just Him. Shem rak b'chinas ziva ara bilvad, because they're merely a ray. Oh, the Gan Eden, higher and lower, anything with you, anything other than you. V'kamayim razal tzadikim yoshvim v'nenem miziva shechina. As the sages said, the tzaddikim are sitting there and benefiting from the ziv, the ray of the Shekhinah. That's what they're doing in Gan Eden. So what do they have? A ray. You don't want a ray, you want the real deal. Why should you be... If you're dealing with a ray, it's all part of this crazy illusion of self. Ki'im l'dafka bo yisbarech. I want to connect to you. Let my ray be in its source where it's part of the actual sun. To be entered and sort of one with the actual essence of Hashem Yisbarach. V'nikra b'zohar kodesh. What is this level called? This level of reaching this level of divine service in the Zohar called lishtaba b'gufa damalka. It's called hugging the actual body of the king. You're not dealing with usually we talk about divar hamelech shilton, right? That the word of the king is the part of the king that you get to access. Because when's the last time you saw a king? You hear his decrees, his word can uplift mountains, the king rules with his words. So that's only the level of the word. This is called hugging the body of the king. You're going to get to the king himself. Not just all this entourage that comes out of the king and that what makes him, so to speak, kingly. V'nikra b'chinas avazu b'chinas tshuva. And this level of ava, this level of love is called tshuva. Tshuva chele yesed. Why? Because the level, like the difference between a tzaddik and a Baal Tshuva, the tzaddik is sitting there dealing with the ray only. The Baal Tshuva is like, I don't want any ray. I've seen it all. I've seen what this ray leads to. Not interested. Where does this thing start? And you run up, basically, to the top, and you serve Hashem with an extra push. Shabbat dafka mitoch hachoshech. Where does the Baal Tshuva come from? From running away from evil. You only get this desire to go find out the source of all things and cling to the really essence of Hashem when you've been in the darkness. The darkness is what let you get there. You can't be a Baal Tshuva unless you went off the derech in some way. And so this longing of wanting to basically really want Hashem and not just do it because everyone around you is doing it and because it's the normal way of going, but your mamash own it, is because you tasted the darkness and you're like, this is not it. Where is this all coming from? How did this darkness get here? Didn't it come because of this illusion of this ray getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller? Well, that means even the top of the ray is Pashut darkness. I don't want any of this darkness. I want you. And this is what a Baal Tshuva is. It's like a turnaround to mamash reach the actual essence. And what is the idea of the darkness? That you wound up being in the world. You wound up dealing with physical things. You wound up disconnecting yourself to Hashem. And all of a sudden you had all this junk in your hands called physicality, one big pile of poop. And you're like, where did this poop come from? You say, oh, it came from a higher level of poop. Well, poop, I don't want any of it. What is all this stuff? You say, oh yeah, if you want to know, all of this doesn't even exist. It's mamash nullified in its source, and that's where you want to get out. So in other words, from realizing the end of the ray is dark, you actually realize that the whole ray is dark. The beginning of the ray is dark. You no longer want anything that has anything to do with any tzimtzumim. You want the essence of Hashem. And this is called a Baal Tshuva, and this is you only think like that, and you only get to that point by feeling distant. And that's why specifically, when you get to the bottom of the ray, which is Olam Hazeh Agashmi, a Yid coming into the physical world, that's the only time you turn around and say no. Because when you're in the top of the ray, you're like, this poop isn't so bad. But when you get to the bottom, you realize how really bad it is. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point that when you hit rock bottom, you come to realize that my whole trajectory of how I got here was a mistaken trajectory. If it leads to this, I made a huge mistake somewhere along the line, and I want the truth. So this all comes from this meditation of realizing what the physicality actually stems from. The whole thing of feeling independent to begin with, even if the original independence is a divine type of enjoyable independence, it's still going to lead ultimately to some kind of sheker. And when you get to the bottom of that sheker, you want to go beyond the sheker altogether to the top.
How long the sheker?
Because you can only really experience the higher level of light from the darkness itself. And again, we'll just give the last two explanations of that. From the darkness means from experiencing something which is not light, so you want light back. And higher yet, when you realize that even this level of Gashmias, it too has a root in the essence of Hashem. And therefore, like when you transform the darkness itself into light, you'll find the essence.
That's the highest level we said before, right?
Yeah. Okay, continue tomorrow.
We can't really handle Hashem's essence. We're like nullify us out of existence.
Yes and no. See, the beauty of it is that at the level of Hashem's essence, there could also be a ray. Why? A ray together with the sun. Because at the essence of the matter, that's what we're saying about Keser Malchus. Keser Malchus is that even this experience of separateness, it's not really separateness. It's really an unbelievably awesome power of Hashem, which can make you feel independent. When you take away the actual feeling of independence and you're left with just the awesome power of Hashem that makes you feel that way, there's no problem with independence either, because it's not truly independence. It's a godly power. So you can exist and non-exist at the same time, basically. And that davka is the essence. So you can actually only get to the essence when you're in possession of your own existence. And then you make of that, you make light of that. You show it for what it really is. That it's not really your private, independent existence. It's God's private, independent existence. And therein lies the essence. So it's really, that's where it's not pantheism or whatever we're talking about. Right. Because it requires the fact that the Ein Od Milvado, even the Od, the other thing, is also Him.